Hi, friends and family,
Welcome to Hope After Addiction
with your hosts, Katie Comer.
and Chelsea McLeod. Good morning, friends. We are so glad you're with us today. So nice to have you, and we thank you for watching, listening. We have a super special guest today, both to Katie and I. So somebody special is in Katie's chair. Katie's not with us today, but I'd like to introduce you. Her name is JoJo, and she has a really sweet, special story that we're going to get to hear, and just some of the things that have helped walk her through this season. And so, good morning, JoJo.
Hi, friend.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. We're glad to have you here. Thank you for being here.
I'm so glad to be here.
Thank you. We actually did our last episode on authenticity, and so if you haven't listened, listen. But today is just full of authenticity and rawness and realness, and we're just glad you're here.
I'm ready. I'm ready to share.
Good deal. All right. So I think just start us off with a little bit of your story. Tell our listeners so they know where, you're coming from. Just tell us whatever your heart leads today. Let the Holy Spirit take over.
Okay. So I'm a daughter of addiction. My dad walked through addiction. He was an alcoholic for the first 15 years of my life. So I watched what that did to my parents' marriage and, growing up, it was a struggle, but, he got saved when I was 15 years old, and he quit cold turkey and has never touched it since. And so, I've seen God's faithfulness and redemption through that story. Fast forward a bunch of years, and I met, my husband, Pat, online, and he was actually coming out of his internship at S2L,
Which is our sister ministry.
Yes. And it was timing. It was God's timing all the way around. There's so much of God in our story specifically that I just knew he was the person I was supposed to be with. And I was so thankful for all of the things that led up to us meeting and connecting. And so he came on as staff at S2L. Right as we started dating, and we were together for 2 years, got engaged and married. So we've been married over a year now, official married, big married. We count December 29th, but
story for another day.
A
yes. Fun one though.
Yes. Lots of marriages to the same guy. It's great. Right. So we, we walked through some things, and I think this is where, this is our opportunity to share just a little bit of what we walked through, but almost a year today. So I'm not sure when you all are going to see this, but we're sitting at the beginning of October, and we're almost at a year to the day that Pat walked through a slip up or a relapse, whichever you want to call it. But and it kind of shook me in a way that I was not anticipating, and it shook him in a way. But God is good in the story. And so he's good in all of the things. And we're coming out of it stronger than we were when we were walking in.
Yeah.
So.
Praise God. And I thank you for sharing your story, because I know it's vulnerable and I know it's painful. It's neat to see someone else talk about relapse, because a lot of listeners ask about relapse. And JoJo and I talked about this many times. And, I thought we'd be the couple that wouldn't endure relapse. A lot of people think that. We hope for that. That's not always the reality. And so it's awesome to have somebody talk about that and to talk about getting through it and how good God still is. And it's funny because even you mentioned learning and dating and meeting each other, and how you can even look back and know that it was divine from God. In many of our days, in the toughness of relapse or walking through this journey, I'm like, God, did I make the wrong decision? Like, am I on the wrong path? Did I not listen to you? And you can look back and be like, no, God, this is our story. You called us to this. We're walking this, and we're walking it in faith.
Absolutely.
And so I love that you share those 2 points, because they're very important. And as many other listeners are walking through relapse right now and not knowing what to do. And JoJo gives hope in that. So I'm going to ask a couple questions just to JoJo so she can dig into that more.
Yeah.
Okay. Number one. Where do you feel God leading you now after walking through all of this?
I think the biggest epiphany moment that I had, relapse was not in my vision. I did not see my dad relapse. He was completely free of it. And so in my brain, when I met Pat, he's free, right? And I believe that. I believe that God frees people of addiction. He does it every day. Yeah. But in this particular moment, it kind of blindsided me in a way that I was not anticipating. But I remember living in a bitterness phase, right as it happened. It was about a 30-day window that I kind of knew what was going on and had to navigate that by myself. And what I felt like was, I guess the best way I can explain it is I had this very vivid vision that there's a husband and a wife driving down the road in the car, and the husband's just acting like a moron. He's texting, driving, he's swerving around, he's just doing things he's not supposed to, and he hits a tree, and both are ejected from the car. And so it was just this, the paramedics are coming. They're like, we got to save the driver. We got to save the driver. And in relation to, we got to save the addict. We got to help the addict. Where's the resources for the addict? And the wife is bleeding out on the side of the road. And that's how I felt. I felt like I was just alone and just bleeding out. And there wasn't, if I could have checked myself into a rehab for 30 days, I kept saying, I want to sit at the feet of Jesus without having any responsibilities for this time frame. How do I have, who do I talk to? What do I do? And I think that was the epiphany for me, is there are resources. I have people, and leaning into the community in that time frame was so valuable to my story. And it led me to what I feel like God is saying, this happened because there's a bigger purpose. I allowed it to happen. It needed to happen, and just kind of say yes and be willing to walk in the direction that I have you.
Yep. Oh, and it's so good. And that JoJo's a visual as well. And I am too. And even when she told me that, I was like, that's how it feels. And so many women that I work with, that is how they feel. It's like, they get all these help, but what about us? They get all this help, but what do we do? And we're left at home with the responsibilities and all the things. And I remember one time when John called, and I think he was complaining a little bit. I was like, do you know what I would do to go away for 6 weeks? And like you said, sit at the feet of Jesus. And it's a powerful vision. But like JoJo said, we do have community. We do have resources. And that's where she found the peace, and also even the vision to move forward with what God's calling her to do, which is really special, because it's there. It's just a vulnerability to open up and share, which it takes a lot. I mean, it's hard to share that stuff in the beginning. And once JoJo started opening up, that's when God began to really move. Yeah.
It's, there's a quote. I have to make sure that I have. One of my favorite resources, was, Lisa
Turkhurst.
Yes, that's it. Yeah. Forgiving What You Can't Forget. One of those powerful books. One of the things that she says, this excerpt really spoke to me. Staying here, blaming them, and forever defining your life by what they did only increases the pain. Worse, it will keep projecting it out onto others. The more our pain consumes us, the more it will control us. And sadly, it's those who least deserve it to be hurt, whom our unresolved pain will hurt the most. And that was the moment where I was like, I'm in pain. I'm struggling. I'm angry, but I don't want to stay here. So what do I need to do, God? Like, how do I navigate this? And that's when, I had coffee with Katie, and she just let me vent and cry, and she prayed with me, and she shared her story, and then I had you doing the same thing. And so reaching out to those people that I knew would be able to just listen, it was just this balm for the soul that I needed.
Yep. And to know that you're not alone.
Yes.
And it's there. That is both a book that, if anybody hasn't read it, it's very powerful in this, very encouraging to forgive and just to help us heal. Yeah. And I think, JoJo, we had said it's like she was reading our brain when she wrote that.
Yes.
It's like, did I write this?
Right.
It's so good. But that's powerful, because so often women can stay, mothers, fathers, in that bitter state. Yeah. And it's only killing you. And so it takes that. And I often say it, I had heard a pastor say it one time, it's okay to not be okay, but it's not okay to stay that way.
Right.
And so it's okay to walk through that season of pain and grief. You have to grieve it. You have to mourn it. That's a part of healing. But if you don't, and you stay in that bitter place, you're only harming you. And like JoJo said from the quote, everybody in your path. Yeah. And if you want healing and restoration, if you don't heal, the two of you never will. The family never will. And so that's a passion behind mine and Katie's, and also JoJo, is the whole family has to heal. And so while they're getting help, you also have to get help. And we encourage that over and over and over, because you need help just as much as they do. And it's good and it's healthy. And so it's important to talk about and do. Okay, next question. It's one of my favorite questions that we ask sometimes. What would the JoJo of today tell the JoJo of a year ago?
I would tell her it's all worth it. Wow. I'm thankful for, as much as I wish that it didn't happen, as much as I wish that this was not part of our story, the scars, the hurt and the pain, they all are going to help other people. And it just kind of gives me chills. You know, we are given things, hard things, but if it can go to help somebody else not have it be as hard, then it's worth it in the long run. I've learned so much about myself in this process. I've learned so much about my husband in this process. You know, people say first year of marriage is hard, right? We've literally run the gamut in our first year of marriage. And so if we can make it through this, you know, how much stronger are we going to be in the long term? And like, how much can our story impact other couples, other singles? He has an opportunity to kind of pour into the lives of men where he works right now. And so what does it look like for me? So it's just this passion. I wouldn't change it, which is crazy to say. It's crazy to say that.
Well, you never thought a year ago you'd ever say it.
No. And the life felt so not unlivable. That's not the right word, but it just felt impossible to navigate. It was impossible to navigate. But each moment by moment by moment by moment, it got a whole lot easier to just navigate. And it's still hard, y'all. It's still hard. There are triggers. There are things that happen a year later that's still difficult to navigate. But we now navigate it together.
And it's so special. It's funny because I often tell John to close his ears when I say I'm grateful for this or I'm thankful. I'm like, I don't want to give you that credit.
Right.
But truly, and in the relapse, and JoJo and I have talked about this and just our time together before, but even with our relapse that we walked through, which was pretty big, it also changed John, and it also catapulted him deeper into his journey of healing.
Yeah.
And it's done the same for Pat. And so that's when you can see that hindsight, that it's been such an influential part of our life and the way that we know the Lord and the way that we're able to help other women. It's also catapulted our husbands further into healing, which is the healing journey for both of us.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, in hindsight, you can say, thank you, God. Thank you for bringing us out of this. Thank you for healing us in this, because it's not easy. And JoJo said it seems impossible. It's a great word, because it does.
It does.
Because you can't see through in those moments.
No.
Okay. What is the best piece of advice you were given during this time?
Man, I received so much good advice during that time, but I think, one of the best things anybody ever told me was to prioritize my healing while Pat was, he went away for 30 days. He went to a program to work on himself, and he needed it. That 30 days, I prioritized. I did everything. I read books. I was doing Bible studies. I was worshiping. I was trying to find anything that I could do to help me heal. I remember somebody else saying, forgiveness is a moment by moment process. It is not I forgive you, all is well. Yeah. Let's just move on. It's, I remembered again. I forgive you.
Yep.
I remembered again. I forgive you. This trigger is happening, but I forgive you. And so it's a complete turning over what I thought my life was and saying, okay, God, I'm not in control of this. I cannot do anything. My marriage, my husband, everything, my future is in your hands, and I just have to let it go. And so pouring into him during that time is really, it was the best piece of advice, because when Pat came back, he was on fire, right? And the last thing I wanted to do is be the one to douse it, right?
Yep.
But at the same time, my feelings are valid. What I'm navigating is valid. Yeah. So how to balance that? And so I had to heal myself. I had to work on myself during that time. And that was the best piece of advice anybody gave me.
I love it. And it's powerful, and it's a whole, it's just a special thing to be able to go back. And I'll ask you this, because I found it to be true, but was it one of the most precious seasons of your life when it was just you healing with God?
Yes. There's a song, that I love. It's Another in the Fire.
So good.
And there's a portion of that where, it's towards the end of the song. She says, I'll count the joy come every, battle, 'cause I know that's where you'll be. And honestly, it almost makes me long for those moments, because there is no point in my life that I remember feeling God as close as I did during that season. Mm-hmm. And so it's like I felt it so tangibly that there was no question in my mind. He held me up, and I would not have survived short of having him to help me navigate it, and my community. But he provided that support. It was multifaceted. And so I'm thankful for it.
Yes. It's funny because that's another thing you never thought that you would say, but I know it truly was one of the sweetest seasons for me. And I pray, I'm like, God, let me feel you, need you, desire you, hunger for you the way that I do on my best days, just as much as I did on my worst. I want that. Like I long for that. Yeah. Just that intimacy and that feeling him in the room with you, worshiping in ways that you never have before. And just, I think the position of surrender, because you literally in those places, you surrender everything. And JoJo and I say this stuff to encourage you, because we know a lot of you you're in that place right now. You were in the impossible. You were in the place of, I don't know how I'm going to get through this. I don't know what the future looks like, but know that one day you will look back and this will be one of your sweetest seasons with God. The most intimate, precious places with God. And so sit in that, bask in that, simplify in that, put away everything other than God and focus on you. And like JoJo said, you have to heal. You have to be poured into. And for so many of us, we pour out for so long. We lose ourselves. We lose our identity. We lose everything. And listen, loving someone in addiction and walking through this, it changes us.
It does.
We will never be the same person that we were. No. Period. But for the better. Yeah. If you allow it, you got a choice here. You're at a crossroads here. And so you can choose to let this catapult you deeper with God in the way that he intends, or you can choose to live better the way that we've talked about as well. And that's a choice we get to make every day, all day.
Absolutely.
And you're going to have moments where you kind of step back and like, I'm not forgiving. I'm bitter again. And it's just a reminder every time, I do forgive you. And I'm going to choose not to be bitter. I'm going to choose to not live and wallow in this. Yeah. And it's not always easy at all.
You know, the natural instinct is to want to punish, right? Repeatedly punish. You did these things. But there's no healing in that too. None. I'm not perfect. I know this is shocking, but I am not perfect. And what? I want to be forgiven for the areas that I lack. And so just kind of as hard as it is, and I would not wish this on anybody, but they're still worthy of that. They're still deserving of forgiveness and love and trusting. It just takes time. And so as long as you're willing to acknowledge the fact that it's a process, there's a difference between encouraging and enabling, and finding what that balance is, but you can't let them, you can't punish them consistently over and over and over again.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up, because people say time heals. It does. And I used to I'm like, oh, whatever. It's the most cliche thing. Time does heal.
It does.
But it's also, and we've talked about this on our forgiveness episodes, but when I get to that place of wanting to punish them, because I did it too, I think we all do it. I want you to know how bad you've hurt me. I want you to hurt the way that I have. But I have to remind myself that I am human, that I am broken, that I am messy, and they deserve forgiveness just as much as I do.
Absolutely, yeah.
Because I'm a broken mess, and I want forgiveness no matter what. Because I always say we're one decision away from a different life. Yep. Period. Every single one of us. And so we want that grace and that mercy just the way that they do. And if they're trying and they're working, then it's grace and mercy. Yeah.
It's grace and mercy.
You bring up so many good points. Just like fills me up. Okay. Next question. What do you feel God showed you during Pat's just season of relapse, his slips?
It's hard really to just put into words how much he showed up. I know we talked about this a little bit, but I felt him in such a tangible way. It was actually Pat was gone during Thanksgiving, which is just a hard season just in general. Like, how am I supposed to be thankful for this? Yeah. But it was the night before, and I had trouble sleeping just in general. And I went to bed, and it was 3 a.m. and I had the most vivid dream that I can remember in my lifetime. And it was very, very much laid out. This is what you're going to do. You are going to pour into spouses. You are going to give them access to resources. You are going to use this story to benefit somebody else. And I remember actually said this out loud. Okay, God, I hear you. I want to go back to sleep. And that moment was, sharing that with other people and saying like, there's nothing else I can do except for share what I feel like God is telling me I'm supposed to be doing. And then to have that validated by other people. I had this vision, you specifically, I had this vision 5 years ago. And so then even now having conversations with women, people that God's bringing into my life to kind of support alongside, how do we make this happen? So as much as I get in my own modes where I'm just like, man, I'm having a day and I'm irritated about this. I don't need to navigate this right now. It's kind of, it's these subtle reminders. Okay, but I need you to do this. Okay, but really? Okay, but I need you to do this. And it's a consistent reminder that I can't not do what I feel like he's asking me to do.
Ooh, it's powerful. And the situation is God births things in us long before.
Oh yeah.
It can be from childhood. And so you never know with what season you're in, whether it's overdose, whether it's relapse, whether it's disease of a family member. I know we have a lot of people that watch this whose families are struggling with cancer or whatever it may be. God is birthing something in you right now and you don't know it. You can't see it. Just like JoJo. I mean, even in that vision, like, God, but how? I can't do that.
Right.
This is I just want sleep. But God is birthing something in you right now. And so the fact of saying yes, and I oftentimes say, your hand's open, just say yes.
Yeah.
Because you don't know where he's taking you. Never did I dream I'd be sitting right here because I'm a writer and I do not like to speak. But God is birthing something in you. And I'm excited to see what God does with JoJo because he has so distinctly put it in her heart to pour into these women. And she's good at it and she's got a vision. And the fun thing is she plans events like... You're like, God, of course you would choose her, because this is her gift. Like he's gifted her with this, but he wants to take it further. And so wherever you're at right now, be encouraged by the fact that you have no idea what God's doing in your life and who you're going to impact out of your pain. Because it's going to be somebody, it's going to be multitudes. And I always say, but even if it's just one, it's worth it.
It's worth it. It's worth it.
Even if.
And it's hard to see it. It's hard to see it when you're in it. It's almost like you've got blinders on. How is this even possible? I can't even, you want to be selfish. You want to have a pity party. I read one of the books, 10 out of 10 would not recommend, where it said, do not have a pity party for yourself. And I threw that in the trash because I do feel like that's important, right? You do need to be able to feel how you're feeling. Yeah. The healing comes by being able to process all of it, the good, the bad, the ugly.
Yeah.
But, I lost where my brain was going because I was trying not to have a pity party. Okay. But, I think there's just beauty in all of it. And so you just never know who is going to be impacted. The random person at a coffee shop, your coworker, the epidemic, the addiction epidemic. It touches, there's the 5 degrees of separation. It's very rare that you find somebody that exists that does not know somebody that has been impacted.
Oh yeah.
So just one little share of this is what I've navigated in my story could lead somebody else to be able to say, oh, well, I know somebody and maybe they can benefit from this. And so you just never know. Even in the hardest moments where I could barely get myself out of bed. Okay, God, look at me now, right?
Yes.
And I never would have thought that would have happened. So I'm so thankful for that.
I know. It's so good. In the Bible, it says like, you can't see what I'm doing right now. You can't see. And so many times, trust me. Yeah. And I can't tell you how many couples that we've worked with and seen restoration. And John and I looked at each other in tears and it was worth it. Our pain was worth it if it was just for them. If it was just for her, if it was just for them, our pain was worth it. And it's powerful. And I know if you're in the impossible, you can't see this right now, but I encourage you. JoJo encourages you.
Yes.
Her story is so special and so sweet. And I'm so thankful to have you here to share that. Is there any other nuggets that you want to give or anything that's on your heart that?
Just not everybody has access to the community that I have. And I understand that, but find your community, find your people, actively seek it out. Church, small groups, friendships, not everybody, in our lives is intended to be, the support system.
Yes.
but identifying who those people are, find your people and allow them to sit with you.
Yeah. I thank you so much.
Thanks, friend.
Could sit here and talk for hours. JoJo and I do love to do this.
We love to chat.
Such sweet conversation. But I hope you guys felt encouraged today and just got something out of her story. If you're watching on YouTube, like, comment, subscribe. Social media, share as much as you want to anybody that God puts on your heart. If you have any questions, email us, reach out, direct message us. We are open books. We want to help. We want to just lead where we can. If you have topics you want us to cover, we're here for it. So we thank you for coming. We thank you for listening and watching and just being faithful and just following God in this. And we love you and we thank you. Have a great day.